Hi, everybody. It's GW again. I'm really happy to be here talking with you. This is Government Thoughts Day 42. Yeah, we've now had 42 days. That's 6 weeks of the Trump administration. Certainly has been an interesting time, Government Thoughts. I mean, it's not all bad. There's been some radical changes that are going on that I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with that. But you can't ever say that everything is all bad. It's just that I have a hard time finding anything that I really enjoy what has occurred. Now, I will say that. When I take a look at what's going on in the world, I'm saying things out loud now that I truly never expected to say. Um, One, I never expected to say that it looked like we, as the United States, are lining up and are almost subordinate to Russia in our national efforts. Um, Now, you can argue that that's may or may not be true. You can argue that we're actually the primary one in the whole scheme of things. But, at this precise moment in time, that is a pretty scary thought, particularly for a guy like myself who served 20 years in the military. And I remember being on a tank in the Fulda Gap over there in Germany, ready to basically go to war with the thundering horde coming across the border from the USSR. Um, it's interesting, that the world can change the way that it does. So let me just run through a few things here. And I'm not trying to pick sides or anything on here, but I think that everybody has to be familiar with what went on in the White House last Friday with Zelensky and Trump and the debacle that they had there. Now, I have been listening to all the newscasts all weekend, the Sunday news shows, and listening to the different activities that have gone on. And depending on who it is that you want to talk to, they talk about how disrespectful Zelensky was, or how disrespectful that Trump and Vance was. But the one thing that sticks in my mind here is that the Trump and Vance appeared to be orchestrated. I mean, that really did appear to be planned. I mean, when was the last time that you saw Donald Trump sit quietly for several minutes, it seemed like, and just let a subordinate person have the floor? And when is it appropriate for the vice president to be the one who is leading the conversation against a state's president? There's hierarchy, with these positions, that it just seems like it ought to be followed. So anyway, in my mind, it certainly appears to have been orchestrated, which equates to an ambush. And now, did Zelensky come off of that and appear to have been really well thought out in his positions and everything else? Well, I got to say that he was rattled a little bit, and I'm not sure that went really as he wanted it to go either. So it was just a debacle. Now, followed up by Trump going down to Mar-a-Lago for the weekend, and Zelensky leaving and going and visiting England and a few other places, I believe, over in the NATO countries, and solidifying his position with the other NATO countries. And they've got to be nervous. The obvious thing. I mean, I'm not saying any new thoughts here. This is not anything new, but they have to be nervous. And of course, Putin and Russia, and probably China, although I'm not sure that China has really decided how to play this yet, but they've been keeping their nose underground here pretty much over the weekend. So it's going to be interesting. But I do find that the activities that have gone on in the last week basically seems to have forfeited the U.S.'s position as the leader of the free world. Now, you can talk about who our allies are, who our allies are not, what the position is. But the leader of the free world has been a title that since World War II, maybe World War I, but certainly World War II, that the President of the United States has been clearly known that he is the leader of the free world. That's not true anymore. That's not true. I don't think that any of the NATO countries, any of the other NATO countries would just automatically say, yes, we are following America's lead. We are following the United States. That is not what they're going to say. And so when you forfeit that position, that is not something that you can just pull that string back and put it back into the bundle again. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And positioning ourselves as we do that, as we give up that leader of the free world, we position ourselves as a subordinate to Russia. Again, a point that is arguable, and that I'm sure that there are many people who might listen to this who would tell me that I am full of crap because of even thinking along that lines. But in my mind, that is where we have put ourselves if we continue to abide by what this administrative wants us to do. I find it interesting that in this last week that the Republicans, House Speaker House Speaker has basically, said we are not going to allow our representatives to have town halls anymore because they kept getting beat up in public and they would go viral. And it was just a bad look, and they just couldn't afford, to have that bad look. And they have to worry about being elected in 2 years, a year and a half from now. So when you take a look at all that, that is an amazing thing, because how are these representatives supposed to get their thoughts out and their positions out to the constituents that they support if they can't do it in person? So this is going to be an interesting time. I said before, NATO countries lining up with Ukraine. They understand that they are at risk of being invaded by Russia, and the possibility of Russia just kind of doing what Germany did in the early stages of World War II, when they just did land grabs and basically just walked across Europe. So that is a thing that I believe that the NATO countries today are sincerely concerned with, and how are they going to defeat Russia? Now, it's going to be really interesting. Two things that came up in the news today that are really concerning. One is the tariffs start tomorrow. 25% tariffs on any imports from Mexico or Canada. China not on this list, Mexico or Canada. So you have these 25% tariffs. There's no question that tariffs have to be paid for by somebody. And you say, well, it's going to be against that country. But in the world of business, everything gets added to the cost of what's going on. So if you put a tariff and you have 25% tariff on there, that is going to cause an increase in the price to the actual consumer. So your bill and my bill is going to go up. There's no question about that. So how this can be a good thing. And interestingly, I saw a headline that said that Warren Buffett, the oracle from Omaha, Warren Buffett actually came out and said tariffs are an act of war. In his opinion, tariffs are an act of war. It is something that is causing a hardship on a country. Very scary. And layoffs that the Doge committee continuing to push. I've talked with several people, family, friends, and acquaintances, and reports from their children who work from the government and everything, and they're having to put together that bullet list of things that they accomplished or didn't accomplish, and they are concerned. They are rightfully concerned. And you take a look at the other jobs that have gone by the wayside. It's also starting to impact the private sector, and there are indications now that the private sector is now starting to lay off people, and because of the projected decrease in the government. Well, the private sector, which has used the money coming from the government in order to support the activities that they do, they are recognizing that they will have to, if the government slims down in the manner that they're doing, with little forethought of what the impact is and the unintended consequences. Well, one of those consequences is that the private sector is also going to have to slim down. So that means that not only the government sector that gets publicized, but also the other people in the civilian world who are going out there and are not going to be able to maintain the jobs that they have had in the past. Say hi to my dogs. That's it for me today. Y'all have a good day, and hope everything gets better. Thanks a lot.